The storm never stopped. It roared over the cliffs of Vera like a living thing, clawing at the slate roofs, rattling windows, and drowning the village in a ceaseless howl of wind and rain. For centuries, the people of Vera had huddled beneath its wrath, their lives tethered to a single light, a beacon atop the weathered lighthouse that stabbed defiantly into the sky. That light wasn't just a guide for lost ships. It was their shield, their tether, their heartbeat. And Soren was its keeper. She stood now at the lantern's edge, her silver hair whipping in the gale, her hands steady as she adjusted the flame. It burned impossibly bright, a core of blue-edged gold that pulsed like a star trapped in glass. Soren didn't know how old she was, centuries blurred into a single, storm-drenched thread, but she knew the flame's secret. It didn't just shine. It held. Held time itself, a delicate spindle she could wind or unwind with a whisper and a turn of the wick. Tonight, a ship had strayed too close to the reef, its hull cracking like a walnut under the storm's fist. Soren had seen it through the tower's warped glass, felt the shudder of inevitability. So she'd wound the flame back, just a nudge, 12 hours, and the ship was whole again, sails taut, crew oblivious to the doom she'd erased. Her boots scraped the stone as she descended the spiral stairs, the flames hum fading behind her. The village sprawled below, a cluster of salt-bleached cottages clinging to the cliffside. Lanterns flickered in windows, weak echoes of her own. She pulled her oilskin cloak tighter and stepped into the rain, her shadow swallowed by the tempest's grey blur. That's when she saw him. He was a silhouette at first, a lean figure braced against the wind, his coat flapping like a broken wing. A camera hung around his neck, lens glinting as he aimed it at the roiling sea. Soren's gut tightened. Outsiders were rare in Vera, rarer still in a storm no sane soul would chase. She strode toward him, her voice cutting through the gale. "You're trespassing." He turned, rain streaming off a sharp jaw and dark curls plastered to his forehead. His grin was reckless, almost feral. "Elias Marrow," he shouted over the wind, extending a hand she didn't take. "Storm chaser. Heard this place has the wildest tempests on the coast. I'm here for the perfect shot." Soren's eyes narrowed. "Leave. Now." "Not a chance." He lifted the camera, snapping a photo of the lighthouse. The flash seared the dark, and something in the air shifted, a ripple, a wrongness. Soren's hand flew to her chest, where the flame's rhythm echoed faintly. She turned and ran. The tower door banged open as she stormed inside, Elias on her heels despite her protests. "What's your deal?" he called, voice echoing up the stairwell. "I'm not hurting anyone." She didn't answer. Her focus was on the lantern, now flickering wildly, its blue heart stuttering. She reached for the wick, fingers trembling, but Elias barged in behind her, camera flashing again. The light flared, then died. Silence crashed over them, heavier than the storm ever was. The flame was gone, snuffed to a wisp of smoke. Soren whirled on him, her voice a blade. "What have you done?" Elias blinked, lowering the camera. "I didn't touch it." Before she could reply, the tower shuddered. A sound like glass shattering split the air, and the world outside the window twisted. The village was still there, but wrong. Two versions of it overlapped, flickering like a lantern slide caught mid-turn. In one, the cottages glowed warm and dry, stormless. In the other, water surged through the streets, swallowing homes whole. Soren's breath caught. The flame wasn't just out. Time had fractured. Elias stared at the chaos beyond the glass, his bravado crumbling. "What is this?" Soren didn't look at him. She knelt by the lantern, prying open its base to reveal a nest of gears and a faintly glowing crystal, the flame's heart. "This lighthouse doesn't guide ships," she said, voice low. "It guides Vera. Keeps the days steady. I rewind them when the storm takes too much." "You broke it." "Rewind?" He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "You saying you control time?" She met his gaze, her eyes ancient and unyielding. "Not anymore." Another tremor rocked the tower. The fractured village split further, 3 realities now, then 4, flickering in and out. In one, children laughed, ghostly and untouched by rain. In another, the cliffs crumbled, dragging homes into the sea. Soren's hands moved fast, adjusting the crystal, but it wouldn't spark. The flame was gone, and without it, the timelines would keep splitting until they collapsed into nothing. Elias paced, raking a hand through his soaked hair. "Okay, say I buy this insanity. How do we fix it?" "We relight it," Soren said, standing. "But the fire isn't ordinary. It's fed by the storm's soul, its rawest edge. I need to climb the cliffs, catch the lightning where it strikes purest. You're coming with me." He gaped. "Me? Why?" "Because you broke it," she snapped. "And because I can't carry the gear alone." The cliffs loomed above Vera, jagged teeth gnashing at the sky. Soren led the way, a coil of copper wire slung over her shoulder, while Elias hauled a metal rod and her satchel of tools. Rain lashed them, wind tearing at their coats, but Soren moved with a purpose that silenced his complaints. The timelines flickered around them, moments of calm, then screams as a cottage vanished mid-step. Elias stumbled, swearing under his breath. "How long have you been doing this?" he shouted over the gale. "Long enough," Soren said, not breaking stride. "Centuries, huh? Ever get tired of it?" She paused, just for a heartbeat, then kept climbing. "It's not about me." At the cliff's peak, lightning split the dark, a white-hot vein pulsing in the storm's heart. Soren drove the rod into the rock, threading the wire to a makeshift conductor, a brass sphere from her satchel. "Stand back," she ordered. Elias obeyed, for once. The first bolt missed, scorching the ground black. The second grazed the rod, sparking but not catching. Soren adjusted the sphere, her hand steady despite the tremble in her arms. "Come on," she muttered. "Give me something." Elias stepped closer, squinting into the tempest. "You've done this before?" "No," she admitted, "the flame's never gone out." He barked a laugh. "Great. We're improvising with magic fire." "It's not magic," she said sharply. "It's balance." Lightning struck again, dead on. The rod glowed, channeling a searing arc into the sphere. Soren grabbed it, wincing as heat blistered her palms, and bolted back toward the tower. Elias followed, half running, half staggering, as the timelines warped faster, streets empty, then crowded with spectral figures, then submerged again. Inside the tower, Soren slammed the sphere into the lantern's base. A spark leapt, faint but alive. She coaxed it with whispers, her breath ragged, until the blue-gold flame roared back to life. The tower steadied. The village outside snapped into focus, one reality, battered but whole, the storm raging as it always had. She sank against the wall, exhaustion carving lines into her face. Elias stared at the flame, then at her. "You saved them." "Again." "It's what I do," she said, voice barely audible. He crouched beside her, quieter now. "Why?" "You could have walked away." Let someone else. There is no one else. She looked at him, and for the first time, something fragile flickered in her eyes. The flame chose me. I don't know why. But every day I rewind, every life I pull back, it's mine to carry. Elias fell silent, the weight of her words settling between them. The storm howled on, but inside the tower, the flame burned steady, a heartbeat against the chaos. Days later, the timelines held. Vera endured, its people oblivious to the fracture they'd escaped. Elias lingered, his camera forgotten, watching Soren tend the lantern with a reverence he couldn't grasp. He'd come for the perfect tempest, but he'd found something else, a woman who held time together with scarred hands and a will forged in centuries of rain. One night, as the storm painted the sky in violent streaks, he approached her. What happens when you can't anymore? Soren didn't look up. The flame finds another. And if it doesn't? She paused, her fingers hovering over the wick. Then the storm wins. Elias nodded, slow and thoughtful. Guess I'll stick around. Make sure it doesn't. For the first time in years, maybe ever, Soren smiled. It was small, fleeting, but it lit the tower brighter than the flame ever could. The storm never stopped. But neither did she. And now, neither would he.